City of Royal Oak to order. Let's introduce ourselves, starting to my left.
Gary Casada.
Dan Godek.
Charlene Douglas, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mike Fournier, Mayor.
Ann Vara.
Tim Twing.
Eric Klooster.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Next item of business is the approval of minutes for March 12th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Beaky,
Support.
support by Mr. Godek. Any discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. Okay, before we get to public comment, I want to make an announcement that the item number 1 has been pulled from the agenda. So if you're here for item number 1, it's been pulled. It will not be heard tonight. And then item number 2, they've asked to,
We've got a request to table it so they could revise the plan. I don't believe the petitioner's here.
okay, so if there's anyone
So-
here for item 2, that will not be heard tonight as well.
Yeah, I would ask for a motion to table it.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Douglas. Is there support?
I'm sorry, I think the correct word is postpone, not table. So
Either works for me,
I would move
but
to postpone.
Moved to postpone by Ms. Douglas, and there was a support by Mr.
Support.
Casada. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The item 2 has been postponed. So let's move back to item C. This is public comment, and this is a chance for you to speak on a non-agenda item. Is there anyone here who wants to speak on a non-agenda item? Yes, right here.
My name is Pat Wall from 1506 Ottawa, and I'd like to do what Garfield is suggesting and ask, like, why has it been tabled? Number 1, can you just briefly say?
Number 1 is off the agenda. It was not tabled, it's just off the agenda.
Because they weren't ready to present, or do we know why?
Commission didn't approve it.
Well, this was denied in the February meeting, this plan, and in order for it to be back in front of us, it has to be a new plan. This is not a new plan. There's nothing new about the plan. There was no structure approved associated with this plan.
Okay,
parking
thank
structure.
you. Garfield and I, thank you.
Okay,
So,
you're welcome, Garfield.
this is what I want to address, and that's what I would address if we were talking about changing what's at Catalpa again to something more than was approved for our healthy community years ago, which was a lower 3-story building and so on with self-parking. As you probably recall, I live near the Mark Twain development, which at one time was zoned for about 30 homes. And because of a PUD, which was maneuvered around many caring residents in the area, protecting the woods and wanting to go with what naturally would be beneficial on that kind of wet property, were maneuvered around, and now there's 184 apartments going up there with not one tree left. PUDs are bad. They take away the common sense. It seems like common sense isn't so common anymore. And I want to know that I can trust you all to make those decisions. There's so much in life we have to deal with every day, more and more stress. And we want to know we can trust you to do what's right and to do what's common sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Right here in the front.
Judy Schwagel, 607 East LaSalle. I'm here to respectfully request your common sense decision regarding the main Catalpa property. I want to thank the commissioners who voted to deny this inappropriate petition in February. Approval of it would violate building and zoning laws designed to protect the residents and our city. And it disregards parking needed for the survival of nearby businesses. It is a bad choice for residents, affected businesses, and
Excuse me, ma'am, you
traffic.
realize this was denied last February?
I realize
So
that.
there's no plan on the agenda tonight.
However, he is planning to come back again.
And when he comes back, you'll be publicly noticed and you'll have a chance to
So
speak.
this is public comment.
And let her go.
Go ahead.
Correct?
Excuse me. I have the floor here for a moment, and I would appreciate you showing some deference to this commission. I'm going to allow her to speak. I was just merely explaining to her procedure. Thank you.
I don't believe there has been a traffic study done on this corner, so if there has, I've not seen it. Maine, Catalpa, Gardenia, Crooks, and Rochester all dump into that area. I drive this 5 days a week at 5:30 a.m., and I know how bad it gets at 5:30 p.m. On August 8th, 2015, I lost my beautiful daughter Katie to a horrific car crash. One crucial thing that got me through the first few months of shock and devastation and kept me from going off the deep end, besides my husband and my family, was jazzercise. The challenging workouts kept the good endorphins going to override the horrible depressive hole in my heart and diverted my thoughts for at least 1 hour a day. A place to physically work out my anger and frustration. For that, I thank Jane McNamara, jazzercise owner. This is not common knowledge, but Ms. McNamara has built up her Royal Oak Jazzercise franchise with hard work, is rated the second best in the entire U.S., and rated the second largest jazzercise franchise in the world for the last 4 years. However, this is only one of several businesses in the Maine Catalpa area that will be destroyed without parking. Not only will they be gone, the owners will go financially where no one wants to go. They have spent thousands of dollars to create a business here and built their clientele based on the available parking lot. Like they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. New is not necessarily improved. Right now, Royal Oak is on life support. People are moving away. Families are angry. Seniors are feeling mistreated and disrespected. Residents are furious at radical changes they never got to vote on. And many avoid downtown altogether, equating to lost revenue to businesses. Those who are still here are embarrassed with what is happening in our city. Other cities' mantra is, don't Royal Oak our city. It makes me sad because I've lived here my entire life. However, I am grateful that this planning commission made the responsible and right decision for this property back in February. I don't believe Royal Oak is so broken that we cannot use simple common sense, listen to the residents who support this city, and get a good feeling of community back again. Stopping to think about repercussions of decisions before they are acted upon is commendable, and your commission did just that. We appreciate that. Please continue to listen to those that live here. That's what public speaking is all about. When residents feel heard and respected, public speaking takes up a lot less of your time. And what's so wrong with a 7-Eleven anyway? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just let you have 3 minutes, by the way. I should have made that announcement. Just need your name, please.
Diane Flynn Hahn, 713 Maxwell. Good evening. I have been a resident of Royal Oak for nearly 29 years. I am here tonight also to speak on behalf of Jazzercise. During the time I've lived here, I've attended exercises and dance classes in other cities, as well as at the Y in Royal Oak, at the Salter Center, and at the Senior Center. About 2 years ago, I finally found my exercise home at Jazzercise. Like any good home, everyone is welcome. There are nearly 700 members, female and male, ranging in age from the teens into their 80s. Like a home that truly cares about their family, they try to accommodate everyone's needs. Excuse me. Jazzercise is open 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, they have 10 classes each day, beginning at 5:30 a.m., where there are early starters, getting children to work and getting children to school and off to work. The last class of the day begins at 8:05 p.m., accommodating those who have had a busy day and can finally squeeze in a few minutes for themselves. There are also 4 classes each day that have babysitting, so moms or dads or grandmas or whoever is watching children can find time to work on their health as well. As families do, Jazzercise staff care about our health. They have incentives throughout the year to get us to attend more classes. Whether we earn a t-shirt, a tote bag, a water bottle, etc., we have the opportunity to better ourselves. This does not cost us any more money, but does cost them money to provide it. As a retired college professor, I know the importance of connecting with your class of adult learners. The teachers at Jazzercise call you by name, are personable, knowledgeable, and fun. They help us to reach goals and to develop an I can do it attitude. I had a few months off recently due to an injury and received messages from several staff members. Knowing that someone is invested in you makes you want to participate. This morning I attended an 8:30 class that had 32 people in it. When the class ends, there's 15 minutes before the next class starts with a similar amount of participants. Excuse me. The traffic flow through the parking lot moves quickly. Without ample, easily accessible parking, Jazzercise, our exercise home, will not survive. Jazzercise owner Jane McNamara was the recipient of the 2017 Royal Oak Community Spirit Award. Is this the way? Is this the way we treat people who have given so much to our community? By building yet another apartment building and parking structure, you will take away one person's business, a number of people's jobs, and the exercise home of almost 700 people.
Ma'am, it's been 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just say no. The cost of doing the right thing, priceless. Thank you.
Just your name, please?
My name is Tina Phillips. My parents are the owner of that property that everybody's talking about. My mother has passed away in December. It's been up for sale for many years. They've owned it since 1972. I've lived in Royal Oak since I was 8 years old, and I'm 53 going on 54. I would like everybody here to know that there's been many things proposed to be put there, but there's a lot of things that cannot go there. We know Jazzercise. We know a lot of people go there. Is everybody happy with looking at a dilapidated piece of junk property? Because that's what it's turned out to be. We are trying our best to try to put something there that's going to turn Royal Oak into something beautiful and also value people's properties compared to what it is today. I'm here to tell everybody that we know about Jazzercise, we know about all the other businesses around there, and I know that this person who is trying to purchase this property is trying his best to try to make parking for that area. There's been a couple of things that have been brought up to me. I can't discuss them at this moment, but don't worry about parking is what I can tell you all. And because he's got something in the makings for that. And the other thing I want to say is Royal Oak has changed a lot. City Hall was the only thing that was around here, and the library right next to it that I used to go to. And we sometimes have to remember that when you put up beautiful buildings like these and we improve our area, it's not for the bad, it's actually for the good. Now, I don't know if that building that is proposed to go there will go there, but I just wanted everybody to know that I know last meeting there wasn't anybody here to talk on behalf of my parents' property, but I am. So whatever the outcome of this will be, the only thing I can tell you is please think positive, because I don't think the city of Royal Oak will make a decision that's going to hurt anybody. And a lot of you are older people, so being a little bit younger person and having younger people that live in Royal Oak, I don't know if you all realize that most people that buy in Royal Oak are very young families, and they would love to have an apartment to live in. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Yes, sir, in front here. 3 minutes. Just your name?
333 North Troy Street. There's an old Jewish story about a man with a loaf of bread under his arm crying, "I'm hungry." Now, why did I bring this up? Royal Oak doesn't need to beg for people to come here anymore. We all know how property is skyrocketing. My old apartment in New York that I paid $80 a month for is now $2,500 a month. Walk-ups in Harlem are now going for $1 million. It's what's going on in New York is insanity. Can it happen here? It's already starting to happen. I noticed the commission seemed to be in shock because over a year since Superior Fish is closed, I've been pushing that. Why is it why is it commercial? Why shouldn't it be residential? The condos there would be worth $2 million in just a year. You think I'm joking? I'm not. And I heard that somewhere already someone has offered that owner more money than he ever dreamed of if the city will allow him to do residential. And I hope it will, because that's an ideal location for residential. This location here on 12 Mile in Maine is a bottleneck. You got Crooks, you got Catalpa, you got Rochester, all coming up on rush hour, and all these people are lined up, especially on Rochester. How am I going to get back from Rite Aid Pharmacy? It's going to be, when I go there, if I go there later in the evening. What's going to happen to all the businesses like Friends Hardware and all these other businesses that have to suffer with a bottleneck traffic jam? You think this is going to help downtown? Come on, people. You no longer have to beg for development. It's going to happen. Relax. And let the people come and make an offer. And again, I say, put in a Class A downtown park here, and you'll see property values go to the moon within 3 miles of that downtown park, because that's what Mayor Bloomberg preached in that's what he did into New York City. And New York City wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for Mayor Bloomberg putting in fabulous downtown parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, in the back there.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name's Tom Halleck, and I wanted to thank the Planning Commission for doing the right thing back in February. I don't think there's anybody in Royal Oak that would not like to see the property at Demos redeveloped. I mean, it is one of the worst places in the entire city, short of the Pichet building that's burned down over on by the railroad tracks. But it has to be the right plan, not just the first thing that pops along that somebody's interested in doing. And your denial of the PUD was appropriate. There's a couple of small sections of language in the PUD. It's CA4. Proposed development shall not result in any unreasonable negative economic impact on the surrounding properties. Taking away all their parking, and even if he adds a deck, none of those buildings, other property owners will be able to grow because there won't be any additional parking. That is unreasonable. It also proposed type and density of use should not result in an unreasonable increase, sorry, I don't have my glasses, or any burden upon public facilities, which is parking lots and other items. So your basis for last time for rejecting it is correct. Make sure it's the correct project. There's nothing wrong with this project, provided it comes back to scale. 5 stories is ridiculous. You also are looking at a project on 1003 South Washington, approximately the same size. Person wants to provide his own parking, underground parking underneath. This person wants to burden our public parking instead of providing his own. You were very adamant that the other person had to provide all their parking at 1003 South Washington. Why does this person not have to? Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Nobody said he did.
Anyone else? You got one on the aisle, one on the front, and then in the back.
Good evening.
3 minutes.
Erica Sykes at 325 Lexington Boulevard. I came here today to let you know that I am also opposed to the plan that has been previously proposed by the petitioner in regards to the corner on Main and Catalpa. There's several reasons why I'm opposed to it, and a lot of them have already been said, but I'm going to say it again. I'm concerned because it does not conform to our zoning codes, and it's 72% higher than is allowed at 5 stories. It also does not provide enough parking spaces for the number of units that they are proposing to have, and I feel that this could unduly affect the current business residents surrounding the proposed project by removing their available customer parking, in addition to forcing overflow parking possibly into the nearby residential streets. Whether it's this same petitioner or a new petitioner who comes back to you seeking approval for a plan on this corner of Main and Catalpa, if it's not significantly smaller in scale and/or they don't provide adequate parking for the tenants that they are going to be housing there without the use of a city-owned parking lot, I'm asking that you continue to deny oversized developments on the property that don't conform to our zoning codes as they are now, and also to ensure the quality of life in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. In the front here, you had your hand up?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Howell. My husband Larry and I have been residents of Royal Oak for over 45 years. We have lived 2 homes in Royal Oak. Our current address is 1026 Pinehurst. I am here this evening to address an issue which was originally on the agenda for tonight, but was removed and is no longer an agenda item. The subject is the redevelopment of the property on the northwest corner of Main and Catalpa, including a proposal to construct an adjoining parking structure on what is now city-owned parking lot on Center Street near Catalpa. Variations of this proposal have appeared on your agenda for the last 2 meetings. Since it is my concern that the subject will return, I feel it is timely for me to speak to the issue. I frequent 3 businesses on Crooks Road whose customers use the parking lot in question. I am a patient of the Oakland Colon and Rectal Associates, a group of 6 Beaumont doctors. And apologies if that's too much information. My son and daughter had their high school senior portraits taken at Bill Williams Prestige Photography. Perhaps most importantly, I am a regular customer of Jazzercise of Royal Oak, and I feel that the replacement of the parking lot with a parking structure would destroy that business. To help you better understand, let me give you a thumbnail sketch of Jazzercise. First of all, it is not a meat market gathering place for hard bodies and spandex. Case in point, right here. There are no machines. 1-hour classes are led by a group of different instructors who lead us through dance and movement exercises accompanied by music. There are over 500 customers, mostly women, who come in all shapes, sizes, athletic abilities, and range in age from their teens to my peers in their 70s. There are currently 57 weekly classes offered, starting as early as 5:30 a.m. and up to 8 o'clock p.m., spread over all 7 days of the week. Young mothers bring their infants and toddlers where they are cared for on site. About 40% of the customers are not Royal Oakers, and they often frequent Royal Oak businesses before returning to the communities in which they live. Even if Jazzercise survived the disruption caused by the demolition...
Ma'am, it's been 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, you do not have a clock as they do at the commission
announced it,
meeting.
you have 3 minutes when you get up here, okay?
I know
It's been
that, but
3
there's no
minutes.
way I can time myself without your clock running.
We've been
here.
timing you.
May I have 2
Sorry.
paragraphs left? May I continue?
3 minutes.
Are you saying shut up and sit down?
No, I'm not saying that, ma'am.
Well, what does 3
Trying to
minutes?
run a very...
I'll make a motion to give her a minute longer.
Second.
Okay.
I need a time card
All
to help
those in
me.
favor say aye.
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 Because you're very entertaining, Ms. Howell. I love your, as long as you have one more joke in there, I'm good with this.
Even if Jazzercise survived the disruption caused by the demolition and construction on the property on the corner of Main and Catalpa, replacing the parking lot with a parking structure would surely put a nail in the coffin. Old ladies like me, there's your joke, would not want to take the extra time needed to travel from home and find a parking place in a structure for a 1-hour class. Mothers with children in tow would find having to navigate a parking structure an insurmountable task. Winter would bring its own problems of having to walk longer distances while carrying a 15-pound bag of weights and equipment, and not to mention what the parking costs would be. Now, a bit about Jane McNamara. Jane lives in Royal Oak and is the owner of the franchise who leases the studio property in which she invested $20,000 in renovations last summer. I have 5 lines left. For many years, Jane rented a space in my church, the First Congregational Church of Royal Oak, while searching for an appropriate venue for her studio. We welcomed her classes back to our church this past summer for a week while the renovations were being done. Jane is an accomplished businesswoman who cares deeply for her customers. For the past 4 years, she has been the owner of the second largest jazzercise franchise in the world, all while battling breast cancer. She has been a very public advocate for breast cancer patients and has made a significant contribution to Royal Oak's Gilda's Club. In 2017, she received the Community Spirit Award from the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce. Jane represents everything good about Royal Oak. We should be doing everything in our power to attract and keep business owners like her in our community. Thank you for the extra time.
What's the planning commissioner's pleasure, or planning commission's pleasure? This woman had 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Are we still at 3 minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, I think in the back, someone in the back had, yes. 3 minutes.
My name is Laura Foss, 1413 Butternut. I'm here again tonight to express my concern over the proposed development at Main and Catalpa. Despite its absence from last night's agenda and being removed from tonight's agenda as well, I believe the Planning Commission needs to hear from residents that will be directly impacted by these development proposals when they inevitably resurface. Like many others, I find the old Demos lot to be an eyesore in the neighborhood, and I look forward to this commission approving a plan for the development to the site. To that end, I'm very encouraged that back in February, this Planning Commission voted against a project 4-2 that was clearly not fitting of the neighborhood, and to reference PUD zoning classification would not have encouraged a greater compatibility of design and use, and most certainly not have enhanced traffic circulation and recreational opportunities, given that the approval of this project endangers the surrounding businesses, one of which is Jazzercise. Mr. Yezbick himself said yesterday that he felt sorry for Royal Oak residents opposing this plan because we have been fed, and I quote, so much misinformation, it's disgusting, end quote. However, my issues with the proposal come straight from February's Community Development Memorandum from the Planning Division to this commission that the public has access to. I was concerned to see that the only parking survey was submitted by the developer himself and not by the city. I also find it concerning that this particular study did not identify any weekend times as peak use. Considering that I attend Jazzercise with my 2 toddlers, both on Saturdays and Sundays, I know full well that morning classes are packed with upwards of 50 customers. Unless the majority of the people occupying the 68 residential units will be up and driving around by 8:30 in the morning on the weekend, there will most definitely be more parking conflicts than what is reflected in the study submitted. I hope that in considering any development of this area, the Planning Commission retains sufficient, safe, and affordable parking access for patrons of the affected businesses. Again, we are not a group of misled citizens ready to oppose change and take a swing at every new development plan. I think I speak for many opposed to the proposal when I say that we are working to educate ourselves on the matters that directly impact our lives, cherished businesses, and the future investment value of property in Royal Oak. With so much deceit and corruption in the government on a national level, I'm holding out hope that this Planning Commission will continue to make decisions that are in the best interest of Royal Oak as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Your name?
Good evening. Carol Mason, 1103 Hickory. As others tonight have expressed, I feel that Demos lot is an eyesore, and the Planning Commission does have a responsibility to ensure that any future development of this site protects the integrity of the neighborhood and the surrounding businesses. As a resident of Royal Oak for 34 years, I take great pride in our neighborhoods. I love Royal Oak. I have chosen to stay here because I love it. The Royal Oak has continued to change, grow, and develop. I love the new tagline, Royal Oak now playing. I hope that this planning commission continues to uphold the strategies laid out in the community's master plan. It states, the integrity of many areas has been threatened by past zoning and developmental practices that have resulted in projects that some consider to be incompatible with existing neighborhoods. The sheer scale of the proposed development by Anthony Yezbick is a major concern, among many other things. Approving a development that is 22 feet higher than what is currently allowed for the area will not uphold this neighborhood's integrity. Approving a development that, as proposed, will have less than 10% of the lot area landscaped will not uphold this neighborhood's integrity. Finally, approving a development that will endanger surrounding businesses and further complicate parking and traffic flow will not uphold this neighborhood's integrity. I hope that this planning commission continues to consider these issues going forward. I'm sure there will be more requests for development, and I support development for that area. It just needs to be the right plan at the right time for Royal Oak. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, right here.
Kathy Putnam, 806 Baldwin. The proposed building at Catalpa, Maine violates the zoning codes. It will potentially displace other businesses that have faithfully been part of Royal Oak for decades. It is planned to be 5 stories, which is 72% higher than allowed. Again, it violates code. I'm in favor of growth and development, but within the zoning codes and following the city charter. Please rethink this Royal Oak project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just again, I just want to be clear, this plan was denied in February. Okay, so I appreciate you coming and speaking, but you keep saying the proposed plan. There's no proposed plan. So I just want to be clear on that. We appreciate your comments, but I don't want there to be anything misled about this, so. Is there anyone else? Was there a hand on the aisle there? Yeah, yes, in the black shirt?
My name's Jay Goldenberg, I live at 211 Gardenia. I was at the meeting last night when the parking lot issue came up, and it was denied because there were other bids supposedly coming in, so there was some kind of conflict, and I understand that. But you keep stating that this was denied in February.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling everybody here that there were no changes, so that's why it didn't come back. And yet it's on this agenda. There were changes. They changed the footprint by 1,000 feet. They were going to be 11,000 square feet. It's down to 10. They added 8 more apartments.
Mm-hmm.
You have it on the agenda. I don't understand why it was put on the agenda if it was denied in February. I know you took it off the agenda at the beginning of this meeting. That's fine. But I don't understand why it was on the agenda in the first place if supposedly, according to you, it was denied in February, so it shouldn't have even been brought up on the agenda. And I just don't understand that. So please answer that question.
Anyone else? Okay, we got a couple people here. There's a woman in like a white sweater. Name, please?
I'm Dr. Wallace Anderson, 404 Mount Vernon Boulevard. And I'm here just briefly to say that I was really taken aback when the proposal appeared on the agenda. Glad to see it was withdrawn. Want to make sure that you understand that this is a concern for everybody who travels on Maine, especially in Catalpa. This would not be appropriate. It's not part of the master plan. It doesn't fit with it. The proposal was to do something outside the master plan. And the zoning, I've seen way too many times where people have said, oh, well, we'll alter the zoning, we'll give you exceptions, and I just don't think this is the time or place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, in the back?
Hi, I'm also here to speak about the proposal for the development in Maine and Catalpa. I am a current employee of Jazzercise in Royal Oak, one of the many businesses which depend on the lot on Maine and Catalpa, which is in contention. The development of this particular city
Oh, yeah.
parking lot.
Did you provide us with your name?
Melissa Mazarak.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The development of this particular city parking lot would be disastrous to Jazzercise, which has been a part of the community for nearly 20 years. Our customers and employees have made Jazzercise their choice in fitness, and no other business in Royal Oak offers a product comparable to Jazzercise. Allowing Mr. Yezbick to build on the public lot would force many customers to immediately reconsider the convenience of attending our classes. And there is no chance that Jazzercise would survive the construction. Many of our customers exclusively depend on the lot during our classes, which span every day of the week from morning until evening. The proposal set forth by Mr. Yezbick severely limits parking spaces for existing businesses and would cause an enormous decrease in parking availability for our customers and customers of adjacent businesses. As a result, the development would force many customers to leave Royal Oak and seek services elsewhere, in effect causing current businesses to close or relocate. Forcing out small businesses is nothing more than the rich getting richer, and it squashes the diversity once available in Royal Oak, which has been severely compromised in recent years. Losing our diversity little by little should be considered a tragedy for the city. Something must be done to retain and protect the diversity we still have. In addition to the severe harmful decrease in public parking and the destruction of diversity, the proposal by Mr. Yezbick requires a rezoning of the parcel in dispute. The rezoning is not justified and should not be considered viable. More examination of the nuances of the rezoning proposal is required before the lot should even be considered for development. Further, the development of the site would be awarded to Mr. Yezbick with a no-bid city contract, which does not allow for healthy competitive bidding and requests for proposals, which could compete with Mr. Yezbick and could potentially pass without devastating nearby businesses. A no-bid city contract is commonly referred to as a form of cronyism or crony capitalism, both close synonyms to political partisanship and favoritism. It is shameful that this level of back-scratching is truly the path the city of Royal Oak would choose to pursue. We are fighting this proposal, the no-bid contract, and the rezoning to save our small businesses. We are standing together showing our support against the development and the loss of jobs for employees of Jazzercise and, in effect, the devastation of Jazzercise and nearby small businesses.
Thank you.
Thank
3
you.
minutes. Yes, right there. Your name, please?
Good evening. I'm Jane McNamara. I'm the owner of the Jazzercise business.
Thank you. I'd like to keep the public comments going.
Wanted to hand you a letter from a neighbor, my neighbor at 1103 Main. He's a doctor at the Esprit Women's Health. He wanted to hand it in because he couldn't be here.
Sure, thank you.
And I just wanted to also, I don't know what will happen with these, but I have a petition with 250 signatures so far from my customers that are opposed to this. And I thought I'd hand that to you.
Please.
I'd like to know how many, I just would like a show of hands of how many are here from Jazzercise in support of not having this development happen.
Do you want this?
Yeah. So I just have a couple of things to say. First of all, thank you for taking it off of the agenda, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come back on the agenda, and I have no problem with this development at all. I just have a problem with the parking issue, the structure, because of the fact that it just won't work for the business. And I wanted to make a point about how Mr. Yezbick continuously mentions how underutilized that parking lot is. And I guess it just depends on what you believe underutilized means. It's a very valuable lot, even though it might not have cars packed in it for 12 hours a day. It's very valuable to all of us all of our businesses that need the lot. To for a little bit further south, Crispelli Bread and the barbershop, they have to use that lot. Nth Degree, which is no longer there, but that whatever's in that building, they have to use that lot, which is next to Friends's, because there just isn't enough parking in that area. I want to just reiterate that there isn't street parking like there is down here. We have 3 main roads that are surrounding our businesses, and then on the north side, you have 2 side streets with 1 block each, parking on only one side of the street, and it would force people, if they couldn't fit in the lot, to park on the other side of Washington, and that would definitely kill my business. I also just wanted to ask you to reconsider, just to keep in mind that the businesses that are there do matter. We don't have to have a urban density type building to bring in new blood into the city. I bring new blood into the city, or I feed the economy of the city every day, 7 days a week. I have 19 communities besides Royal Oak who come to Jazzercise, different cities who drive there, and they spend money in Royal Oak every day that they take a class. They leave class and they go do a myriad of things in Royal Oak, grocery shopping.
Thank you. It's been 3 minutes.
Just wanted to, please
you.
just take that into consideration.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Anyone else? Okay, not seeing, we'll close the public hearing, and we will bring it back here to our next item is D3. This is SP 190409. It's a site plan to renovate professional office building, expand and renovate warehouse storage building, and convert former manufacturing building into a self-storage facility at 1316 through 1320 North Campbell Road and 1710 Bel Air Avenue. Mr. Twing.
I'll let it clear out a minute.
Oh, yes, absolutely. The last one got a little bit of a zing into the no bid and the political cronyism.
Yeah, which is, I mean, not a real endorsement on the application.
No.
That's not
Well, they were at Dixie's.
Oh, never mind. I'll listen to you say.
I bet.
I already read through it.
But we can sell.
What you have in front of you is a site plan for a piece of property that's on the southeast corner of Campbell and Bel Air. It is in the general industrial zoning district. There are 3 buildings that exist on the site that the petitioner is proposing to do various things with them. 1316 North Campbell is planned for renovation into office space. 1300 North Campbell, which is the one in the south corner of the site, is pretty much staying as 6 storage units, independent units. 1710 Bel Air, the smaller building along Bel Air, they are planning to add a second floor to for storage. So you've got storage and office plan for the site. I'll let the petitioner walk through actual uses in his presentation. Terms of the site plan memo, item 1 would simply be that to continue with those uses. All the zoning requirements are predicated on uses as presented on the plan. Item 2, the zoning ordinance does require 30-inch screening walls, not only along the new area that's planned for parking, but as well as improving that area where the existing parking is adjacent to Bel Air Avenue, so that relates to that pursuant to the Planning Commission's guidance. Item 3 is in regards to the existing driveway, as I'm pointing to here on the outside on the screen. Planning office is suggesting that this hard surface portion of it be narrowed so this last space becomes landscaping as well, eliminating what could be a parking space. It's not identified as one, but it is hard surface and people could park in it. All the rest of our contingencies are standard contingencies regarding approval of right-of-way, any signage, posting a performance bond, and compliance with building codes.
Thank you, Mr. Twing. Any questions for Mr. Twing? Okay, not saying, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Casada?
Yes, I just, you mentioned the screening. So from the department's point of view, where would that screening go? You mentioned.
Technically, it should be, if you look at the screen, it should be along Bel Air adjacent to the parking spaces.
And then where the.
And it's already proposed over here, I believe, on this one.
Okay, so what you're saying is the difference would be, the contingency would be that they would put a screening wall.
Right here.
To the.
Everywhere else is indicated as having it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, is the petitioner here? Yes, please come up and introduce yourself and explain your project.
Hi, my name is Christian Grove.
Come to the microphone, please.
I just want to say I've never felt so unpopular with everyone just leaving. My name is Christian Groth. I live at 432 South Washington.
Brad Dorr, 416 East Kenilworth.
Joe Novitsky, 385 612 Mile Architect.
Thank you.
Sure. We have no contest with the comments from the planning staff. Any of your comments or additions to improve this facility, we're happy to accommodate. We think we're taking a derelict structure and property and returning it back to a good use and compatible use for the community. It's a shared office environment. Two of the buildings are going to remain essentially the same. The third one up front is going to go through a pretty substantial uptick, and we think it's a valuable asset to the community. Any questions you have for us, we're happy to help.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Douglas.
Yeah, are you flexible on your landscaping material selections? Probably the staff didn't give you a heads up on this, huh, Mr. Twing?
Is there Bradford pear in there?
There are Bradford pears in your landscaping plan.
James Scott, a dear friend, 80-something, 85, loves them. If you don't like them, I'll have to relay that information.
I'm going to break his heart here.
I trust my dear friend Jim to a degree. For 25 years, I can't explain. If you don't like them, we'll take them out.
Yes, they are an invasive species. They're weak, they're short-lived, they stink, and they provide no shade.
What else don't you like them? Okay, they're appropriately scaled. They don't get too big. That's why we like them.
Ixnay on the Adford
Okay.
Airspace.
Okay, what would you rather see?
Something besides that. If you want
How
to.
about skyline locusts?
Palm trees.
Palm?
Just kidding.
I can help you with that, but not here. I can't help you with that. Make a suggestion, we'll write it down.
No, I'm going to just say anything but that. The city's arborist can recommend trees that are consistent with our climate and suitable for a development like yours if you can't think of anything, or if your friend Jim can't.
I'm assuming you're referring to the existing Bradford pears?
Are they existing?
Yes.
Oh, all right, my bad.
Are you saying to remove them, Ms. Douglas?
I don't know, can I say that?
If you want to. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm looking for them, and the only ones I see are existing.
Yes,
so
they are.
I just
All
wanted to
right,
make sure.
then I don't have any authority to tell you.
Yes, you can.
Can I?
Yes.
Or maybe if they die, they can replace them.
They're going to fall.
With something else.
Yeah, I'd like you to replace the Bradford pears.
Gentlemen?
Okay, no problem. We have no problem with that.
Thank you.
Locust?
Yeah, that's good.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Casada?
Okay, I just want to pick up on this because I heard you talk about the scale. Indeed, I think, when I look at this, where all those trees are planted are right below about 14-foot-high wire, power lines.
That's why I'm suggesting the locust, they can be calmed pretty easily, trimmed pretty well. They're along many, many public streets and avenues. We use them specifically for that, but I'll be glad to take other suggestions.
I'm just raising it as an issue because the scale is an issue
is.
there. And I don't know, I'm not an arborist, so I don't know
It
what
is,
goes there,
and
I'm
that's,
just pointing it out.
and that's why they're there. They're topped out right now, and they're not invasive, and they're not, they're invasive, but not invading. So it's a curious issue.
Okay, you've also got 2 trees planted over on, I think Edison at the end, there's a pole there too, that's make it a little tight, I don't know if it matters 1 or 2, but I just point that out, it looks a little tight there to me.
Okay, well, if you recommend, planning staff, Tim, you want us to?
We'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll do that in-house?
I just want to make a suggestion that not to take out trees that are existing unless, if they're not a current problem. I mean, when they die, remove them.
We won't
but-
replace them with the same species. Yeah, they're healthy, and they're not hurting.
I mean, just for the sake of the tree canopy.
Your point is valid. I'll accept
I mean,
that.
I see replacing with something more preferable to
Yeah, when
the
they
Michigan
finally go.
native, but not when they're actually standing and still
All right.
alive.
Standing for long.
Thank you. That's true. I mean, we don't know the life, but we'll agree not to replace them, correct? Sure.
Mayor?
I mean, if they're not a.
With like-kind species, right.
So since we're talking about trees, I don't know, maybe I missed it. I didn't see a tree plan in here, and I know you're not having an extensive, bringing out the plows and tearing everything up. Do you have a tree count, how many plan to be removed and how many you plan to plant, like overall, or is it just keeping the status quo?
Status quo plus the annuals and perennials that are on Jim's plans.
Okay, do you see any area where you might be able to plant a couple more trees?
Well, there was a suggestion by staff just now to take the first parking place out and put that in.
Okay.
We have more parking than we think we need. That's agreeable.
Okay, that'd be my preference. Thank you.
Okay.
Anytime we can add a couple trees here and there, it does well by every project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Casada?
So the 30-inch wall that would be added here, that's a masonry wall? What is that? What do we require there for these folks?
Yeah, it'll match the other 30-inch wall that's around the rest of the site.
Okay, maybe I'll wait till we get back to the other side of the table for a discussion.
Pardon me?
I'll wait till we get back to the other side of the table for a discussion on this.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Godek, do you have your hand up?
I was going to speak to the same thing, that I don't think that wall would be necessary here, but I'll wait till we talk about it on this side.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, so this is not a public hearing, it's a site plan, so we're back at this side of the table. Is there any more?
Sorry, I
Mr.
did have
Casada?
one more question for
Sure.
the. It looks like that's thin brick on there. Is that coming off? How are you going to deal with that on the existing buildings?
There's no thin brick on that building that I'm aware of. I think it's all solid masonry. We're planning on extending and repairing exactly what's there, puncturing bigger holes in the masonry walls that exist on the second floor. It's not masonry on the second floor of the new addition.
I think on the back side, I was on the site, and on the back side, away from Campbell, on the large building there, is thin brick.
Is there?
I think you're actually, I think you are correct, that is brick.
My mistake.
That is a brick veneer, for lack of better wording, that we were planning on replacing. We're looking to make that building actually quite a bit more attractive, both from a parking lot view, which is looking west, and also looking east from Campbell Road.
Okay, that was a concern, if you're going to do an upgrade and leave something that didn't look good, that was my concern.
I think that's, I love that stuff if it's applied correctly, and I didn't even know it was thin brick until I was just told it got damaged. The front isn't. I mean, that's a wonderful material. It lasts it's real brick. It has to be.
Okay, on the back, definitely doesn't look as good.
Well, no, I was just told that has been damaged, and yeah, we can fix that. It's been a while since I was on that site now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, it's back to this side of the table. Is there a motion?
Where did we leave the tree thing? I kind of like the idea of replacing the Bradford pears, but there was some concern that we're pulling out trees or.
I'm looking at the trees right now, at least on Google, and it looks like, I agree with Ms. Douglas. I can't stand Bradford pears for so many reasons, but this canopy seems to be pretty healthy, so.
Yeah. It's not in an area where they're gonna cause an invasion.
Right.
They will fall over in a couple more years, though, because I've lived through 3 Bradford pears that the city has planted in the park next to me. And
Well, here's the problem with this area. It's a built-up, thin landscape area, and no tree is gonna do well there. So you have to find a street tree that can take its roots being in a compact environment surrounded by concrete, which is not good. So you will have to replace them eventually.
Well, sure. Would you rather have grasses or something like that there?
I mean, we can put a tree is preferable.
There are certain species that roots can take much more compaction than others, so when you do have to replace it, I would.
We'll work with the city on that. I mean, I don't think that there's.
That's
not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think the clarity for Mr. Godek is
Do we
that
wanna
the
make it
proposal
part
that
of the
Ms. Beaky
motion?
made was, hey, instead of tearing them out, when they do come to their end of their life or blow over or somebody backs into them or something, they get diseased, then you'll replace them with a suitable species of tree that, as Ms. Vara brought to our attention, that would be, conducive to that environment, that would survive in that environment. And I think that's fair. Instead of putting another Bradford pear in there, I mean, put something that will actually last. It's probably in your best interest to do that too, when they fall out.
I'm sorry, the other thing that Mr. Casada brought up was the 30-inch masonry wall along Bel Air. I have mixed feelings about how we place those sometimes. They kind of just, if there's parking that's facing the street where they might block, lights from other businesses, you see them around gas stations where they've been run into, and they generally don't, to me, improve the overall aesthetics of the property. I'm a little bit torn about requiring that on Bel Air, since the parking doesn't point towards the street. I'm not sure what benefit aesthetically we're getting by those.
And what utility we're getting from them either.
So I was just wondering how the rest of us feel about them.
I think a landscape screen would serve the same function of blocking headlights onto adjacent properties and provide a more pedestrian-friendly and less fortress-type aesthetic than a masonry wall would.
Is there opportunity to put bushes there? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kind of discuss this, I'm sorry.
Mr. Godek, you done?
Go ahead, I'm done.
Okay, Mr.
Okay, I
Casada.
just want to sort of amplify that. As we go up Woodward, today you see that the Genuine Cigar wall got knocked over. I know the donut shop on Main Street got the wall knocked over. And in this case, if this is a storage facility, there's going to probably be people going in and out with a trailer or something, and the chance of that wall getting knocked down was about 100%. So I think that for various reasons, I would endorse not requiring a masonry wall there.
Yeah, and I would just add that for all of those reasons, I agree with Mr. Klooster, I agree with Mr. Casada. I'd also say that in this area that's more industrial, having a little bit more greenery back there would be nice. You know what I mean? People do walk back there. I mean, we put sidewalks back there and some people opposed, and now you see people using them on their lunch break, going to Kroger, doing all these things. So it'll make it aesthetically pleasing and more pedestrian friendly, I think, as Mr. Klooster pointed out.
Agreed. We feel the same way.
Mr. Godek.
Let's make a motion to approve site plan SP 190409 with striking number 2 from the recommended contingencies. First sentence of number 2. Thank you.
Okay. Motion by, is it your motion, Mr. Godek?
That is.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Casada. Is there discussion? Okay, now seeing all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You're approved.
Thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen. Thank you for your interest and investment in that part of town, making it look nice. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay. Next, we have other business. This is a sign variance, SV 190403. It's a request to replace a monument sign and maintain other non-conforming signs for a religious institution at 2005 Rochester Road. Mr. Twing.
As the report indicates, this location is in sign area 1 now. The site has 2 existing signs, monument signs, that were granted variances by the Planning Commission in 2015 under a previous version of the sign ordinance. Given that the sign ordinance doesn't grant non-conforming status to continue, and they're proposing to replace signs, there is no non-conforming status here, so they both have to be addressed in terms of variances, the variances that are listed. Neither existing sign complies with all the requirement standards for monument signs in sign area 1. And so I'll kind of highlight the differences between which they are. The petitioner is proposing to replace the monument sign around Rochester Road while maintaining the one on Main Street. And I think you have pictures of each in your report on the first page. The one to the right is being replaced. I believe the one to the left is remaining. The new sign facing Rochester will have a height of 5 feet, an area of 29.9 square feet, a setback of roughly 21 feet. This sign would also have an electronic message center, which is only allowed in sign area 2. So the first variance relates to allowing an electronic message center in sign area 1. Secondly, in regards to this electronic message center, the provisions for that indicate that it can't take up more than 50% of the sign area. In this case, the proposed sign would occupy 61.57% of the sign area for that monument sign. So another variance would be necessary to waive that greater square footage of electronic message center. The existing sign on Main Street, as I indicated, would maintain its form. It would need a slight 2-inch variance from the height standard, as well as a 9-foot variance from the setback to maintain it in its current location. I believe those are all the variances for the 2 signs.
Thanks, Mr. Twing. Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Casada?
I had trouble finding the Royal Oak sign area map. Is it on the website? Because I couldn't find it.
Should be. Should be under the sign ordinance, but.
Right, the sign order, it says it's supposed to be made part of the chapter, but when I looked for it, I couldn't find it. But I'm pointing that out, that I couldn't find it. It would have allowed me to have some understanding of where the sign areas are, so that's what I was concerned about.
You want to see it?
I do.
2 halves. The big book.
This is the old-fashioned way. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else wants to see it.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Twing? Yeah, Ms. Douglas.
So what happened here is they were shooting for a 50-square-foot sign and have proposed and thought that their LED area was 15 feet, but were mistaken? I mean, their presentation talks about a 15-square-foot LED area, so that plus the rest of the sign would be under 50 square feet, and yet your calculations, you came up with something else.
Well, the LED portion is more than 50% of the sign. It's not So the sign itself is limiting in the sense of how big the total sign is, and then the LED can only be, or the electronic message center can only be half of that.
Oh, so it's like 2/3. So it can only
Right.
be, it should be half of this area here.
Right, so the,
Okay.
yeah.
So is the LED area 14.98 square feet?
I believe it's 15 by our calculation.
Well, that's
Right. 14.9 is almost 15.
close enough.
15, okay. So that's 15 square foot here.
So do the math for me. So the 15 square feet is more than 50%. I mean, isn't 50% of 50, 25?
The existing sign is 50 square feet, the new sign is 30, but then that's half.
Oh, so the proposed new sign total is 30. I got it. All right, I'm sorry.
Smaller, right?
I got it.
All right.
It's still 50%.
Yeah, the proposed new
still
sign is 30,
50%.
so it's just under 50%, 14.98
The way
of
they're
30.
showing it is larger, though.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the graphics are, it's definitely greater than 50%.
Yeah, but the measurements suggest just under 50%.
Right.
Right, 30, 15.
It's just creative dimension.
Right.
Don't put that 50 proposed.
Proposed new sign, 30 square feet. LED screen size, 15 square feet.
Yeah, this is 18, that equals 47.1 times 91.7, 30 square feet.
Well, based on our calculation, and again, just you can refer back to the paragraph that I was looking to find, the calculation indicated that the electronic message center is 18.47 square feet, or 61% of the sign.
Which is consistent with their image,
Right.
but
Yeah.
not with their numbers.
Yeah, their numbers are
and-
wrong.
And again, in the same paragraph, it indicates the plan from the petitioners incorrectly specified electronic message centers.
Right.
It's also 5 feet tall.
All right, well, maybe we can work this out.
Get my calculatrice out.
Okay, I'm done for now.
Any other questions for Mr. Twine? Is the petitioner here?
Hi, good evening, and thank you for welcoming us here, and I think we scared everybody else away. My name is Haitham Sittu. I'm engineer and owner of Sittu Industries. We're the manufacturer for the LED message centers and the signage. Real quick, because we're on the subject of the square footage area, it is not incorrect. The calculations on here are correct. If you take 24.5 inches, multiply that by the width of 88 inches, divide that by 144 inches, which is the formula for calculating square footage, you will end up with 14.98 square feet. That's undeniably. It does, I know what you're saying, I'm looking at the drawing myself, and it does look like it's bigger, but if you look closely, that's a bezel around the LED sign. But if you calculate the actual LED screen, the physical, pixel to pixel, you do end up with 14.98 square feet, not 18. What happened was, I believe if you take the other number, if you take the frame size, which is 29 inches by 91.7, I believe that's where they came up with the 18 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's how it's measured, by the sign ordinance.
Is the frame.
It's the frame of the sign. It's not the.
Not the
verbiage
illuminated
in the
part.
sign.
Okay.
Well, which makes it difficult to calculate, because if the overall sign has a two-parter, where do you stop calculating the LED sign? See, that doesn't make sense. You have to calculate the LED sign separately, and, this is your city, I completely understand that, but across the entire country where we send these is always the screen size. Just like that TV up here, the monitor, when you calculate screen area, it's the screen area, not the bezel, not the frame, not the body, because the body might have an insignia. In this case, it has a name on top. So where do you stop? So that's why it's defined as screen size compared to actual cabinet size, and so on. Back to the request. The church basically wants, a nice, beautiful new sign to communicate with the community. They're going to use it to communicate, daily news article, whatever it is that the church advertises, communicate with and welcome people coming in and going, new events, community service activities, drives, whatever it is that they need to communicate with. And this is the newest method of doing so. The LED sign that they chose to go with is of the most premium quality there is. I mean, they're going with a 10 mm display, which, what that means, you're not getting what you might see like a pixelated screen. They're actually getting something that's really high-end, where it's a nice, crisp, clean image. The lighting is completely controlled to be 3% above ambient light, which means it's not going to be blaring out light. As a matter of fact, it's going to be less bright than most average signs you'll see on the road. So it's completely controlled. The messages are limited to 30 seconds, completely static, no flashing, motion, scrolling, or anything of that nature. The upper section is also LED illuminated, so it'll be nice and clear all the time. There won't be any issues with mercury migration or anything like that, like you would see in fluorescent lighting and those sort of issues. A comment was made about the sign in the rear. That sign is not really a monument sign, it's more of a directional sign, because it's almost actually, if I look at the measurements, it's from the front of the property to the back of the property is almost 600 feet distance, and that's an entrance. They're just basically letting people know, hey, that's an entrance as a safety precaution, and directional sign more than really a monument sign. If it's 2 inches above, it's probably due to erosion over the years. I think that sign is pretty old. I don't think it'd be a hardship if we had to, work with the church in helping them raise a couple inches or add some landscaping to make it look at least 2 inches shorter. All in all, the church really is looking to have a nice new method of communicating. They won't have any other signs. They won't be having any more banners and things like that on the property, so it'll be nice and clean. So that'll replace all of that, all those issues. The cabinet is all aluminum, so it will never have rusting or anything of that nature. So it'll last a good, nice, long time, and it's peaceful to the community. There won't be any obstruction whatsoever.
Mayor.
I just had a question. I apologize if I missed it. Had a late night last night as well.
Sure.
Sitting one chair over. The landscaping I see on the existing sign on Main, is that to stay? Or is there a different, I really like the look of the landscaping with the existing sign, and it would be a shame to see, that feature go away.
Sure. We plan to continue. My name is Gary Faust. I'm the member of the church that is following up on this. And yes, we're going to keep landscaping. We may want to adjust it because the sign's going to be smaller. Sure. But we definitely want to update the landscaping to go with the sign. It's a plain, simple sign as far as, monument signs go, no rocks or anything like that. Because our church is sort of busy looking, used to have colored windows and everything. We've taken all those out a couple years ago and still have some colored tiles mixed in with the rocks. So anything that's more of a typical monument sign would just sort of conflict with what we have. So we're using landscaping to marry this into the landscape.
Okay, good.
Ms. Douglas.
So, I'm sorry, say your name again.
Hey Thumb.
Hey
Thumb.
Mr. Thumb.
It works. This has been working for many years.
Are there reasons, in terms of built construction or whatever, why, it seemed like your goal was to meet our standard, which is 30 square feet with half of it being LED. And yet it seems like you misunderstood that our rules measure the entire box, not just the message portion. Is there any reason why you couldn't comply with it? That is, reduce this a little bit down so that it does meet our standards?
Honestly, we really thought we were meeting your standard. I don't think it clarifies that LED screen and LED box, because I could easily have made this cabinet wider and incorporated a church logo on the left side within that same bezel. So realistically, I think we are in conformance is the fact that the LED screen is only 15 square feet, 14.9 square feet.
I'm going to defer
So
to
I'm not sure how, you could easily say the whole thing is that part of the LED sign if you use that analogy. You could say that the entire cabinet is 47.1 by 97 by 91.7, and that's just a filler space. So we're trying to explain that we really are only saying the LED section is only 24.5 by 88 inches, which universally, how LED manufactured, they're metric. Unfortunately, it's not like feet and inches where I can take a saw and chop off, let me chop off 3 more pixels out of there.
Pixels, yeah.
We've tried, they break.
Don't make me laugh.
After today, I think everybody's alive. But the next size smaller is substantially smaller, and then again we'll be in the same situation because as we keep shrinking the sign, the top gets shrunk, and then we're still always going to be within that. Where do you count the square footage? And it's been honestly, I was like, somebody didn't understand the thing, maybe, or we thought we missed something. And then I looked at it, I go, did I do something? I'm a mechanical engineer, so I look at these numbers all day long until I get a headache. But yeah, that's typical. I mean, that's national. I mean, on a national level, that's how, LED screen size is this much. We're familiar with the 50%. As a matter of fact, that's really, honestly, that's very, very generous.
Oh, why, thank you.
Honestly, it's very,
Finally, a compliment.
Yeah.
honestly, it is extremely generous. Sterling Heights allows only 1/3. But then again, they allow 150 square foot sign. Okay. Right? Yeah. But so you see what I mean? But they only allow 1/3 of the overall sign. But again, still, we calculate the screen area, not the cabinet size, because the cabinet size can incorporate many things. It can incorporate the church's logo, the church's name on the left of it, something else to the right of it, worship times maybe, those kind of things. So you have to define screen size as screen size. And screen size in this particular case is 24.5 by 88 inches. Multiply those, divide by 144, and gives you exactly 14.98 something, 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 something. And that's how we come up with that square footage.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, should we bring it back to this side of the?
I have another question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Douglas.
The sign on Main Street,
Yes, ma'am.
would you like to have a nicer one there? I mean, right now, it's 2 metal sign posts and a piece of tin, right?
Yeah, yes, it would be nicer. One of the things about the location of the sign is that the reason it's only 1 foot away from the sidewalk is that there's a big tree there. And if you put it 10 feet away, southbound traffic won't see it. We think it really provides a service for now that we have the bike path widened there, it's a bike route, just so people realize that when they're riding their bikes that cars are going to come in there, and so cars recognize that there's a bike path there. So, yes, and answer your question, yeah, we could make that nicer sign.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion? Mr. Casella.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're back on the side table. I have another question for Mr. Twing, if I
Sure.
can. Okay, what you provided me here, Mr. Twing, was a map that doesn't show them in any sign area, and I think it's an old document. But what you've got in your report is there in sign area number 1.
Right.
And sign area number 1 doesn't allow electronic messaging signs.
That's correct.
So we would have to give them a variance.
Yes.
Okay, so if you guys indulge me, I'm gonna pop off a little bit here because this is my neighborhood and I support what you guys are doing. But I've got some issues here. I think that the way you attract people is to be attractive, okay? You obviously recognize that yourself because your church had sort of a Keachy Tim Burton 1950s look to it. and you hired somebody to come in and do a nice job to redo the exterior church, you changed the colors, you made it more elegant, even put a little Frank Lloyd Wrighty doodad up on the top of the tower by the cross. It looks good. That's a good thing. That's gonna attract people. The sign that you got now is not very attractive. I understand you wanna change it. What you're proposing is a lot less attractive. And we had this issue with the Good Shepherd Church, lots of talk about that. That sign that was put up, even though they promised us that they weren't gonna flip the sign and it was gonna be, nice, I just drove by it today, it's too bright, it's obnoxious colors, it flips every 10 seconds.
No, it doesn't.
It did today.
Oh, I thought they fixed it.
I was there a few hours ago.
Okay.
Okay? And it looks terrible. The box is hideous, and what I'm telling you, my suggestion to you, which I shouldn't make this suggestion, that's not my place, is you ought to go get the guy or the girl who designed your church and have them design a nice, attractive sign for you, instead of putting up this ugly box that you're gonna put up. So I'm not gonna support it. Yeah, I understand, you may be good at what you do. It's not gonna look good, and I'm not gonna support it.
Mr. Godek.
We've been consistent with electronic signs, and I have to agree with Commissioner Casada on this, that our change in the sign ordinance doesn't give us much leeway to say what we can do with signs and where they go and what they can say, so when it comes to the sign ordinance, it's comply, comply, comply. If we do have latitude here, I'd like to see it with minor changes in setback and size, but electronic signs not in sign area 1 means no electronic sign in sign area 1. And I agree with Mr. Casada's statements, and it's going to proliferate. It's done in other communities, and I think it's garish and it doesn't belong. Signs are for wayfaring. They're not for advertising, whether it's a church and good things that they do or a dentist's office or whatever. We've been consistent with saying about electronic signs lately, and I'd like to see us continue that.
Ms. Douglas.
Mr. Twing, the ordinance change we made here a year or so ago, as inspired by the Good Shepherd sign, what zoning area did that allow LED signs in?
I believe it's 2.
So, and we did that, I think our idea at the time was to let churches have electronic signs, and we sort of figured they were all in sign area 2.
I don't recall the overall conversation, but I believe that the Good Shepherd's Church was added to sign area 2 versus amending the ordinance to allow all uses, I believe.
It was.
I mean, if it was based on use, this wouldn't be in front of you for an electronic message center, so we didn't change it to allow all churches to have electronic message.
Right, I understand that.
So that
But that was the
wasn't-
net effect.
Well, it was the net effect to give them one rather than, because I think sign area 2 was also up and down Campbell Road and some other areas. I believe you extended it.
So we changed their sign area
Right, I believe that's what you did over there.
to 2.
To 2.
I do remember there was yellow and green, and they were kind of
I
like a
believe there
yellow
was a
stand-up.
business north of them that had it.
Paired together, pockmarked weird signage areas.
But this church is completely in a different area.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
they're
a
in a
very
totally
clearly different zone.
Yeah, they're a different area.
I'm with you.
I'm very concerned also. I mean, the aesthetic.
Ms. Beeke.
Oh, I'm sorry. The LED aesthetic, I'm a little hesitant about, and if it's not in that, allowed in that area, I tend to lean in that direction. Because I would also be concerned about kind of a rolling variance coming up, and I don't think they add much to the aesthetic of the community. The only positive thing I think is not having those other signs perhaps in the lawn, but that's Anyway, but I tend to say if it's not allowed, to stay with that.
Mayor and then Mr. Klooster?
Yeah, I might be on an island here, but, I think for the same reasons when we evaluated the American Legion situation and the church on Campbell, I would support, granting the variance for an electronic sign.
Mr. Klooster?
Mr. Twing, can you clarify when this sign ordinance took place, assigning this sign area, so this being in sign area 1, and when LED signs were excluded from sign area 1?
I don't know that I have that level of detail. The sign ordinance has been amended several times over several years. Electronic message centers were added as a permitted type sign, primarily along portions of Woodward Avenue in that sign area. And then there was most recently the Supreme Court decision about how to read signs and interpret what type of sign it was. Also caused the sign ordinance to get amended. So that was amended at that time for that. And then there was another amendment to reduce the number of sign areas. So to get to the specifics of when this was done and that was done, I can't tell you that without going back and looking.
What? Tim, you know everything.
Any other questions? Ms. Douglas?
Well, I want to comment that I know that their sign on Main Street is is not permitted, but I think it's essential. I mean, that's the main entrance to their parking lot. They absolutely need a sign there. I totally get their argument about if you move it back to the a sign setback, it's going to be hidden by the tree. And I would even support them putting a nicer sign there as long as it was in the size that the ordinance allows. So I'm just saying, get it done soon enough while we're all still here and, roll the dice. But I'm with Mr. Godek, we've hung very tight on LED signs and where they're permitted and where they're not. We've had this discussion at this table many times, so I am not going to support that proposal for that reason.
Mayor, you had your hand up?
Do you want to separate these in any way then, or?
How will we do that?
Well,
May I speak?
Well.
May I speak?
Hold on, please. Mayor, you had your hand up?
Well, I can wait a second if there's more information
Okay.
coming by my colleagues or.
Please.
There was you changed the zoning that put us in zone 1. We weren't in zone 1 until fairly recently. At that same time, adjacent to us, that there used to be the daycare center, and now that's a finance business. And RWS Finance, and they have an LED sign 10 feet from our property, on the south side of our property. And that didn't change the neighborhood? I mean, that wasn't an affront to the neighborhood?
It was an affront to the neighborhood.
Well, that was done at the same time.
It was a mistake.
Well, but it was done at the same time that you changed us to a zone 1. You changed them from a zone 2 to a office service zone, which allowed them to have the electronic sign. And this was at the same time we were looking into a sign ourselves, and we were told, wait until the ordinance changes.
We're confusing issues here, and
Yeah.
Well, okay, but it's-
zoning issue, rezonings with a sign ordinance.
Right.
We're getting way off track.
Well, we've been there over 50 years, and now we're a single-family zone.
But this is sign zone, sign areas,
Yeah.
and they're different from zoning,
Okay.
completely different from zoning.
Mr. Casada?
Just to make a comment.
Yes.
I think if it wasn't clear when I said before, I think you and your congregation and what you're doing and your future are all going to be better off with an attractive sign and not this sign. So I'm not myself, I'm not trying to throw cold water on what you're trying to do. I think you're better off with an attractive sign, and this one isn't it. So that is a reason why I'm not supporting it. I'm not doing it to do anything to you. I want you to succeed.
I
You should have
think
a
if we're
good sign.
going to have a motion for up or down, we need to be very clear on what we're providing a motion for, and it's not aesthetics, it's for rules that the sign ordinance, that we're abiding by the sign ordinance, not because it doesn't look good or you think it looks ugly. It's, to me,
Okay, we can
subjective.
We can discuss that, but I think that's one of the reasons we have the sign zones.
Mayor.
You know, I'll make a motion to, at least for the first part, to allow for the variance related to permitting the electronic sign.
Okay, so there's a motion by the mayor to allow the variance for the, are you referring to the 15 square foot electronic message sign area?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be part of, all of C. So you have a motion to approve C,
And how does that work?
or B and C?
It would be B and C.
B, so the motion is to approve B and C, and anything
Well,
about?
if you can, I think if you're gonna make that motion, you need B, C,
E is for the other one. D is
for the other one, and A is if you want to allow both.
Right.
So the motion would be for B, C, and D, and are you ignoring A and E? Does your motion include?
Yeah, I don't know
two?
how to parse this one up. This is now a mathematical, more
math
strenuous
than
than
you wanna-
calculating the square footage of an LED screen
Why
now.
don't you just start with B?
All right, I'll start with B. I'll move for B. There you go.
Okay, so the motion
That
is
was-
to approve letter B, which is to allow electronic message center in sign area 1. Is there support? There's no support. So there's no motion. Mr. Godek.
I'll make a motion to deny the sign variance as presented.
Okay, so there's now a motion by Mr. Godek to deny A through E.
Yep, based on, it's in the wrong area for electronic sign, and none of the A through H were met for,
No, look up here. This is your letters.
right. I'll keep the motion simple to deny based on no electronic sign in sign area 1.
Okay, so the motion is to deny A through E based on not allowing electronic signages in sign area 1?
Yes.
Okay, is there support?
I think I support. Can I get a clarification? So the 9-foot minimum, is that part of that on the Main Street side?
He said A through E.
Well, I guess, let me rephrase my motion. I'm okay with everything if it's not electronic.
That's what I thought.
So
You'll move
I'll
to
say,
approve without B.
yeah, take out B and,
C.
You want to, may I suggest?
We don't have a plan in front of us that's not electronic.
yeah, I'm hesitant to approve.
There's not a sign.
I'm hesitant to make this a positive motion to approve this, striking B, so I want to deny the whole thing. Because if we parse it out, good luck. I'm not sure that that's what the petitioner is going to come back. If they're going to not get an electronic sign, they might propose something entirely different, that these numbers no longer work. So,
Well,
If I can, if you're comfortable with 2 monument signs of this particular size and location, you could approve A with 2 monument signs on the lot without, and deny B and C.
then approve.
They redesign their sign,
I'll
because
I'll-
we're not gonna look at it. We're not looking
I'll
at the
try that
wording.
and see what happens. I'll make a motion to approve the sign variance, removing the ability to have electronic message as outlined in B.
So you are approving A, D, and E only.
Sounds good.
A, D, and E, and you're ignoring B and C, which is not part of your motion.
Correct.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Casada. So again, the motion is to approve A, D, and E, leaving out B and C. Mr. Klooster.
Just to clarify, if we approve A, D, and E, they can come back with a new design for the monument sign on the Main Street side, and it would not come back in front of this board, as long as we
Yeah, as
approve.
long as
two
everything
monument
else
signs.
complies.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Godek, supported by Mr. Casada. Is there any more discussion on this side of the table? Mayor?
Well, I didn't get a second for my motion to allow the electronic sign. So I'm in a predicament. Do I vote for this knowing that that's not a possibility? But I think, I would have supported the entire motion. So therefore, I'll be supporting this even though I don't have any issue granting the electronic sign, just because the other things in here are fine, just, now that my motion was not even denied but not put on the table.
Chairman?
Okay, any more discussion?
Chairman?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? So the motion by Mr. Godek, supported by Mr. Casada, was approved unanimously. Okay. Next item of business is item 2, which
Let's
is,
see if do they have a question? I mean.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get
Oh, yes.
So you're not allowing an LED sign, you would have no issue with, for example, a changeable letter sign, that would be normal, right? So those ugly signs would be no problem, and
Wait.
even though it's illuminated,
No, you're allowed to have any type of sign allowed in sign area 1 that complies with the monument signs that you've proposed in terms of size, location, and height.
but those changeable plastic-looking signs, those would be permitted, because those are not considered LED.
I'd have to go back and look at the ordinance, they may not be. But
I see.
we'll deal with it tomorrow. You've got 3 waivers and the rest has to comply.
I know, but the primary cause
The only
was they were
reason we
trying to
came
communicate,
The only reason the
Well,
other
they
items
voted,
were-
so.
The only reason the
I know,
other-
we're trying to get your attention for 10 minutes, but we couldn't seem to get.
The only reason we were addressing the other necessary variances is because we were changing something. Well, we're not gonna change anything now, so.
That's your right to.
Yeah, okay.
That's totally your right to,
Well, thank
you
you
don't have
for
to
your
change
time.
anything.
Thank you for coming in,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is the administrative site plan approvals. Mr. Twing?
Those are just information. We do it periodically to give you an update of what's come through and been approved.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It's not on the agenda, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, since you've recognized me. Mr. Twing, where are we with the housing study that we voted on here a while back? You sent the commission a memo, but sometimes the people need to hear it spoken here at the table. So give us an update here.
Well, when you're referring to a housing study, I took where we were heading, where staff's been heading for several months, as not necessarily a study of housing, but ordinance changes to the zoning ordinance to deal with residential projects and residential provisions. So I wouldn't necessarily call what we're doing a study. We're actually looking at what's been approved over the last 2 decades, and what exists even prior to that, analyzing, everything from how many units are in each site compared to lot coverage to compared to where they're at compared to parking. So we're tracking all that back on spreadsheets so that we can actually see what is the existing trends and patterns that have been blessed, and do they fit with the various areas of town, so that we can draft ordinance provision changes to bring to you for your consideration. So it's a study in the sense of we're looking at those things, but where the purpose of that is to actually bring you revisions to the zoning ordinance. Dealing with everything from height. One of the biggest issues I have with the way the zoning ordinance was drafted, probably back in 2001, is every district in the city is limited to 30 feet other than the CBD, and somehow that's, it gets thrown out as that's we're violating the ordinance because somebody wants to go above 30 feet. 30 feet is the midpoint of a house, a two-story house. It's not a practical standard for a lot of commercial areas, but again, you got to remember what occurred back when those provisions were written. So I want to study that and look at height, density. Again, some of the things we've talked about. Do we have too much of a requirement? So we're analyzing all of those things. So that's part of the study, but the purpose of that is to bring it to you and say, here's what we think you should consider changing in the zoning ordinance. We may add another zoning district. We may tweak the ones we have in terms of mixed use and multifamily. But I wanted something to back it up with is what's out there and what's been approved. And is that different from areas of the city? So very similar to what we did several years ago when a lot of the bigger footprint houses were being built into the neighborhoods. Did a floor area ratio analysis of every residential lot in the city. Some of you may remember that, to define what the character of those neighborhoods were, because everybody said that's not in character with my neighborhood, but anybody could have built that house. They just had chosen not to. So those are the things we're looking at in terms of residential.
So I know we have the target market analysis, and we also, elsewhere in the city, are talking about the needs of our older residents and making sure that the housing that we build today will accommodate our changing demographic. Is there a way for what we're doing here to also incorporate those issues?
We can. I think there are some things that are already in place in the ordinance that aren't taken advantage of occasionally. But we can look at if there's anything stronger to add to it. There's been some opportunities, as you're aware, to have had required some senior housing or some other things to occur that are already in place, and we've got provisions for that. I don't know how you make someone do it. We can look at how we would maybe treat some provision. Somebody might get a bonus if they provided. But one of the strongest things I want to say is when we get done with this analysis and bring you ordinance provisions, I'm going to strongly recommend that you don't grant any relief. You don't grant any special activity. In the zoning board, we tell them the same thing. Because what I've seen over the years, and as soon as you move a provision to less restrictive, they just ask for more. So if you've done this analysis and you've determined what fits in an area, you should really just hammer that and be done.
I absolutely agree. And when we hear people talk about, not wanting planned unit developments, I myself don't like the way planned units developments have been used by multifamily developers to get around our zoning conditions, which are wrong, outdated, need adjustment. So I too want to avoid that. So I'm absolutely agree with you. But I'll speak for myself here. Others may chime in. I do also want to see if we can address not just the zoning elements of it, but the configuration of those units, as I said, to meet, like today, people are building 3-story townhouses that, young people active young people who can climb stairs and do jazzercise are snapping up right away. But, 25 years from now, those may be a drug on the market. So I also want to make sure we're talking about the physical nature of the buildings as well as, their zoning and size and height and so on and so forth. And
There's very few ranch-style, lower-level units being built. There's a couple, but not many.
Right. So and you spoke of incentives, and I know other cities do that. I mean, you give the developer a bonus, let them, if they make X percentage of the units accessible, you let them add an extra floor, or you give them other benefits along the way. So, I mean, I'd like to see us explore those things as well. And maybe you had suggested in your memo, we do a planning commission work session on this subject, really bring some public input in to see what we can come up with that will be beneficial to the city.
Well, and I'd like to do that when we're ready to, before we open it up to a bigger audience. I'd like to get the analysis done, present it to you guys in a work session so you can, and that'll be a public meeting.
Sure.
But before we open it up and invite a bunch of people in, I'd like your input on where you'd like us to go once we show you what we've found.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up as much as you want.
I have a question. I hear a lot here about the parking issues and the traffic issues regarding that one specific development, but I'm sure it's come up in other developments, especially when they're bigger and get more dense. Is part of your analysis going to have some of that in there? I mean, because I think as a community trying to become more walkable, bike-friendly, all of those things, through traffic is one thing, local traffic is another thing, but they mix together on certain roads. And while we stay very focused on people parking and driving, while there is a big preference, and for example, in big residential places, I think that's very important to have parking because people do have cars. At the same time, we live in a community that is fairly walkable and people have access, but the norm is still to drive. And again, incentivize parking by having more parking. So parking study and traffic study in the sense of, where those choke points might be or have been. I mean, because I think it relates to this issue of housing. And I agree that it's much better to have clear ordinances and zoning that we stick to. And if we do give variances or give permission, that we get something back for the city, whether it's the trees or again, handicap accessible, but we should know based on, again, community input, the master plan, not just what's been happening, but I think where we want the city to go, because I think the onus is on us to kind of push in that direction. Even if it's suggesting to people what other aspects of our reporting, people have read that housing study because they bring it up, but have they read, about the tree canopy? Have they read? So what other things should they be looking at before they even bring forward a plan that would be more consistent with what the city is looking for based on recent information? Because we know some of the other information is outdated. But I look forward to do your analysis.
And the analysis we're doing is going to look at parking as it relates to residential multifamily developments.
Okay.
It's not going to be a parking analysis of every other provision. We're focusing on the residential portion, the more than 3 unit portion. So even sites that have been around for 30 years that have 3 units on them are in our analysis, going to be in the analysis to see what they're doing. But it's going to focus on that.
Okay.
It's not going to open the door to a bunch of other things at this point. Because as you're well aware, a lot of projects are multifamily residential right now, or have been. Not aware of a lot of parking complaints. I am aware of a few, but I'm not aware of many. One of the things we might do too is look and see what kind of complaints we've had around some of these, if any. And if there aren't any, might tell you something.
When you say complaints, you mean neighborhoods complaining about people tying up street parking, or?
Or parking
Okay.
in my way, or I need. I'm aware of a few, but not.
Good, yeah. Excellent plan.
So that's where we're heading. It's just a matter of time to get to it. 2 of the spreadsheets are pretty far along, and we're just trying to kind of merge them so they make some sense. Then I would like to map it out so that you can see where it is. And are there any trends in that fashion?
Good.
So,
Great. Yay, thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Do we need to approve the administrative plan, or that was just
no,
for our
that's just
information?
Information only, okay. Yeah, Mr. Godek.
Just a commercial announcement. April is Driver Safety Awareness Month. I serve on the traffic committee, and it's a personal thing for me to be safe out there and pay attention to driving. Don't text and drive. Tell your kids.
Watch for pedestrians. It's spring, people are walking, hiking, wearing headphones when on their bikes, so yeah.
And stop driving fast down.
And drive the speed limit.
Please.
Drive the speed limit.
In Washington.
Yeah, kids learning how to ride bikes, watch out.
Thank you.
Move we adjourn?
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Let's lower the speed limit.
Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.